I froze in the doorway of my own bedroom. The top shelf of my closet, the one I hadn't touched since Patricia passed, was open. The old cedar box she'd kept up there for 32 years of our marriage was gone. I knew before I even walked down the stairs. My son-in-law was sitting at the kitchen table eating a bowl of cereal like it was any other Tuesday morning. "Where is it?" I said. He looked up. Didn't even have a decency to look confused. "Where's what, Dad? I hate when he calls me that." "I've told him. My name is Howard. I am not his dad." The cedar box. Patricia's cedar box, the one that was on the top shelf. He set his spoon down slow, the way people do when they're buying time. "Oh, that." He leaned back in the chair, my chair at my table in my house, and said, "Sylvia and I needed some cash. We had some things appraised last week. I figured you wouldn't miss it. You never even opened that closet anymore." I stood there for a moment. I don't know how long. Long enough that the refrigerator kicked on and off again. "You sold your mother's cedar box." "It was just sitting there, Howard. It's not like she's coming back for it." I turned around and walked out the front door. I didn't grab my keys. I didn't grab my jacket. It was 40 degrees in Knoxville that morning, and I stood on the porch in a flannel shirt, and I breathed until I could think in straight lines again. Patricia Ann Wheeler, that was her name before she became Patricia Gaines, had kept that box since before we met. She'd shown it to me on our third date, pulled it out from under her bed in that little apartment on Merchant Street, and said, "This is where I keep the things that matter." She had a photograph of her grandmother inside, a folded letter from her father written when she was 17, a pressed flower from her senior prom corsage, and a small silver key that she never explained and I never asked about because some things between a husband and wife are allowed to stay private. After she died, pancreatic cancer, 14 months from diagnosis to the end, I put the box on that shelf and I left it there. Not because I couldn't look at it, because it felt right to leave it where she'd want it, somewhere safe, somewhere that was hers. And my son-in-law sold it. I found out which shop from Sylvia. My daughter stood at the kitchen sink with her back to me and gave me the name like she was reading a grocery list. Powell's Antiques and Consignment on Western Avenue. She didn't apologize. She said, "We have credit card debt, Dad." Theo said it would help. Her husband of 4 years. The man I'd let move into my house when they hit a rough patch financially, 18 months ago. The man who ate my food and watched my television and apparently walked through my closets while I was out getting groceries. I drove to Powell's that afternoon. The man behind the counter was older than I expected. Maybe late 60s, reading glasses on the chain around his neck. The kind of guy who looked like he'd spent his whole life around other people's old things and treated every one of them with care. His name tag said, Earl. I told him what I was looking for. He nodded slowly, walked to the back, and came out carrying it, the cedar box. He set it on the glass counter between us, and he looked at me over his glasses and said, "This yours?" It was my wife's. "She passed 2 years ago, March." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I'll tell you something. When the young man brought this in, I almost didn't take it. Felt off to me. Some things walk through that door and you can just tell they belong somewhere." He paused. "I priced it at $280. I'll sell it back to you for what I gave him. $120. I pulled out my wallet. He stopped me. "That's not all." He reached under the counter and slid a small padded envelope toward me. "When my wife was cleaning it up for display, she found something. There's a false bottom in there, Mr. Gaines. We didn't open what was inside. We figured that was your business, not ours." I looked at the envelope. "A false bottom," I said. "Yes, sir. Lined with velvet. Pops up if you press the right corner." My wife thought it was a jewelry compartment at first, but it was too shallow for that. She felt paper in there. He tapped the envelope gently. "We put it in here to keep it safe." I paid him the $120. I shook his hand. I carried the box and the envelope out to my truck, and then I sat in the parking lot of Powell's Antiques for 45 minutes before I could make myself open it. Patricia was a private person. I knew that when I married her, some husbands would have been bothered by it. The way she sometimes went quiet in the middle of a conversation. The way she kept certain drawers locked. The way there were phone calls she took in the other room. I was never bothered. I thought privacy was a form of respect. I thought two people could love each other completely and still be allowed their own interior rooms. I was 58 years old, sitting in a truck in a strip mall parking lot in Knoxville, Tennessee, finding out how wrong I was about that. The envelope had 3 pieces of paper inside, folded together. 2 were letters. One was something else. I'll get to that. The first letter was written in a hand I didn't recognize. A man's handwriting, I thought. Slanted hard to the right, blue ink, on plain white paper. Patricia, I know this isn't what either of us planned, but I need you to know that what happened between us was real to me. It will always be real to me. I'm sorry for the pain this causes. I'm sorry I can't be what you need. C. No last name. Just C. I read it 3 times. Then I read the second letter. This one was Patricia's handwriting. I would have known it anywhere. The looping P, the way she crossed her T's almost like a small flag. It wasn't addressed to anyone. It read more like a journal entry than a letter. If anyone finds this, I want them to understand that I made choices I'm not proud of. I want them to understand that I also spent the last 22 years making it right in every way I knew how. Howard doesn't know. He will never know if I can help it. He deserves to live without this weight. He has been a good husband, a better one than I deserve for a long time. I'm keeping this because I can't bring myself to destroy it. It's the only honest record of who I was before I decided to be who I wanted to be. I hope whoever reads this can forgive me. I hope Howard never has to. I sat with that for a long time. Then I picked up the third piece of paper. It wasn't a letter. It was a document, a private lab report. The kind you get when you pay out of pocket and don't want it going through insurance. The date on it was 19 years ago. The names had been redacted with black marker, but not completely. I could see the first letter of the child's name. It started with S, Sylvia. The result said, probability of paternity, 99.97%. The name of the tested male was blacked out. It wasn't me. I never took a paternity test in my life. I didn't know there was any reason to. So Patricia had taken one, quietly, on her own, 19 years ago, and she had hidden the result in a false bottom of a cedar box and kept it on a shelf in our closet for the rest of her life. I drove home in a way I don't fully remember. I know. I stopped at a light on Cumberland Avenue because I remember a woman in the car next to me was singing along to something on the radio, and I thought, how strange that the world just keeps going. I want to be careful here, because this is the part of the story where I could make myself the victim in a way that isn't entirely honest. Patricia and I got married in 1989. Sylvia was born in 1991. I never once questioned it. Why would I? We had a good marriage. We had our problems. A bad year in 1993. Some distance between us in the early 2000s when I was working too much. But I never had a reason to doubt her. After she died, I grieved the way men of my generation grieve. Quietly. In the garage at night. On long drives with the radio off. I missed her every day, and I thought I knew who I was missing. I did not know I was missing a version of her she'd built for me. Sitting in my driveway that evening, I tried to think about it from her side. She had made a mistake. Or a choice, I don't know which word is right, sometime in our early marriage. She had been with someone else. She had gotten pregnant, or she had been pregnant around that time, and she had not known for certain whose child Sylvia was. So she'd had a test done. She had gotten the answer, and then she had buried the question so deep that it lived in a velvet-lined false bottom for the rest of her life. The man whose initial was C. I didn't know who C was. I still don't. I've gone back through 19 years of Christmas cards and email contacts, and the names in her address book that I kept in a kitchen drawer. There are 2 people with a C. A college roommate named Cecilia, who moved to Portland in the 90s, and a man named Carlton, who my mother-in-law once mentioned at Easter as someone Patricia had dated briefly before we met. I don't know. I may never know. What I do know is this. The paternity test said 99.97%. I do not know if that means Sylvia is mine or she isn't. The father's name was blacked out. It could have been my results. It could have been Carlton's. Patricia might have tested both of us, me without my knowledge, a cheek swab from a glass or a toothbrush or a hair, and confirmed that Sylvia was mine. Or she might have tested him and confirmed that she wasn't. I have been sitting with that ambiguity for 3 months now. I have been sitting with that ambiguity for 3 months now. I have not resolved it. I told Sylvia 2 weeks after I found the box. I sat her down at the kitchen table, the same table where Theo had eaten his cereal like everything was fine, and I told her what I'd found and what it said. I told her about the letter from C. I told her about the letter from C. I told her about her mother's note. I told her about the redacted test. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, "Do you think she knew which one it was?" "I think she might have," I said. I think that might be why she kept it. Sylvia put her face in her hands. Not crying exactly, more like she was pressing something back down. After a minute she looked up and she said, "I want a test." "I know," I said. "I need to know if you're my father." "I know," I said again. "Me too." We did the test. A home kit ordered online, mailed to a lab in Ohio. We got the results on the Thursday morning in February, sitting at the same kitchen table, her laptop open between us. I am her father. 99.8%. We both cried. We're not a family that cries easily. We sat there for a while with the laptop between us and didn't talk much, and that was okay. Then I looked at her and I said, "There's something else I need to say." She waited. "Theo needs to go." She looked at me for a moment. Then she nodded. I don't know everything about their marriage, and I'm not going to pretend to, but I know that my daughter stood at a sink with her back to me and handed over the name of the pawn shop like it meant nothing. I know that her husband walked into my bedroom and took something that did not belong to him and sold it for $120. And I know that without Theo treating my wife's memory like a garage sale item, I never would have found those letters. I never would have known the question. I never would have known the question. I never would have gotten the answer. That's a complicated thing to hold. Theo moved out in March. Sylvia stayed. We've been living in the house together the way we haven't since she was in high school, having dinner together, watching bad television on Thursday nights, talking more than we have in years. She asked me once if I was angry at her mother. I thought about it for a long time. I said. For about 3 weeks I was so angry I didn't know what to do with myself. I drove a lot. I went down to Cades Cove twice and just walked. I was angry at the letters and at the box and at the false bottom and at myself for never knowing. And now I think your mother spent 22 years building the best version of herself she could. I think she loved us. I think she was ashamed, and she handled it the only way she knew how, which was to carry it alone. I stopped. I wish she'd told me. I think I could have handled it. I think we could have gotten through it. But I'm not sure I have the right to be angry at someone for not trusting me with the worst thing they ever did. Sylvia didn't say anything for a while. Then she said, "She really loved you, you know." "I know," I said. "I know she did. I want to say something to anyone watching this who's been carrying something the way Patricia carried it. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a therapist. I'm a 61-year-old retired electrical contractor from East Tennessee who found out his wife had a secret, and that the secret was hidden in a false bottom, and that his son-in-law sold the box for gas money and a dinner out. But here is what I know. The weight of an untold truth doesn't disappear when you die. It lives in the things you leave behind, in the boxes you keep, in the documents you can't bring yourself to destroy, in the velvet lining of a cedar box on a closet shelf, and sometimes the worst thing that ever happened to you is the thing that finally makes you honest." I still have the box. It's on my dresser now, not a shelf. I took the false bottom out. I leave it open. Inside there's the photograph of Patricia's grandmother, the letter from her father, the pressed corsage flower, still faintly pink after all these years, which I didn't expect. The silver key is in there too. I still don't know what it opens. Maybe that's okay. Maybe some rooms can stay closed. Earl from Powell's. I went back there last month to buy an old set of socket wrenches I'd seen in the window. I told him things had turned out all right. He nodded like he already knew they would. "Most people who come back," he said, "they're doing better than when they left." I told him I appreciated what he and his wife had done. He waved it off. "Things belong where they belong," he said. "That's all. I'm not going to stand here and tell you the last 3 months have been easy. Some mornings I wake up and I'm fine. Some mornings I lie there and I think about the letter from C, and I wonder if he's still alive. If he ever knew about the test. If he spent his life wondering about a woman named Patricia who chose her family over whatever they had together. I think about the 19-year-old document and what it took for her to do that alone. No Google, no online labs, no easy answer. She had to find a way to get tested without me knowing. She had to wait for results. She had to read them by herself. And she chose to put them in a velvet-lined box and keep them safe, and let me keep living my life the way I was living it. I'm not sure whether to call that a kindness or a theft. I think maybe it's both. Sylvia thinks it was love. Maybe she's right. She knew her mother better than I did, in some ways. What I know for certain is this. I'm 61 years old. I have a daughter who is mine. I have a house that is finally mine again. I have a house that is finally mine again. I have a cedar box on my dresser with a pressed flower that is still faintly pink, and I have the rest of whatever time I've got left. That feels like enough. More than enough. That feels, for the first time in a long time, like the beginning of something. I've been thinking a lot lately about what Theo actually did when he reached up to that shelf and took Patricia's cedar box. He wasn't just taking an object, he was making a calculation that my grief was worth less than his convenience, that a dead woman's memory had a price tag and it was low enough to settle a credit card balance. People who think that way don't arrive there overnight. It builds slowly, one small justification at a time, until taking from someone who trusted you feels like a reasonable thing to do. Theo didn't wake up one morning and decide to be that person. He became it gradually, in all the small moments when he chose the easy thing over the right thing and nobody stopped him, including my daughter, including me. That's the part I've sat with the longest. I let Theo into my house because I thought I was helping Sylvia, and I was so focused on being generous that I stopped paying attention to what was actually happening inside my own walls. Generosity without discernment isn't a virtue. It's just a door left open. Patricia used to say that the truth has a way of insisting on itself. I didn't fully understand what she meant when she was alive. I think I understand it now. She carried a secret for over 2 decades. She managed it carefully, protected it, kept it sealed behind velvet and cedar, and then her own son-in-law, a man she never trusted, if I'm honest about the signals she gave me that I chose not to read, walked into our bedroom and put that box on a glass counter for $120. The very thing she built to contain the truth became the reason the truth got out. There's something in that I can't stop turning over. You can manage a hard thing for a long time. You can be disciplined about it, careful, even loving in your reasons for keeping it hidden. But the weight of an unspoken truth doesn't disappear. It lives in the things we hold on to, and when someone carelessly reaches for those things, not understanding what they are or why they matter, the truth comes out anyway. Not on our terms. Not gently. Just out. I'm not angry at Patricia anymore. I was, for a while. I felt like I'd been robbed of the chance to know her completely. The real her, not just the version she'd decided I could handle. But I've come to think that what she did took a kind of courage, even if it was the quiet, hidden kind. She looked at what she'd done, faced the worst possible question a mother can face, got her answer alone, and then spent the next 2 decades being the best version of herself she knew how to be. That's not nothing. That's actually a hard thing to do. What I keep coming back to is this. The truth doesn't ask our permission. It waits. And eventually, one way or another, it finds its way into the light. The only real question is whether we're the ones who bring it there, on our own terms, with honesty and courage, or whether we wait until a careless person does it for us, at the worst possible time, without any care for who gets hurt. Sylvia is my daughter. I know that now, in a way I didn't need to know it before, because before I just assumed it. Now I've earned it. That's a strange gift to receive from the worst 3 months of my life, but I'll take it. And Earl, that man at Powell's Antiques who set the envelope on the counter and said, "We figured that was your business, not ours." I think about him more than he'll ever know. In the middle of all the carelessness, he was careful. That matters. Simple decency in the right moment can change everything.